So back in early to mid-January, Jess Owens released a video commenting on this ladies' book talk situation that basically stated that giving less than 3 stars on a book was bad because people work so hard on that like not acknowledging their good work makes you an asshole. First I kind of rolled my eyes at it and didn't think I had much to say because I already have all of these videos about what I think authors and reviewer relationships should be and how a reviewer should rate books, which, includes why you might 1 or 2 star a book, as well as justifying that sometimes the reason you 1 or 2 star a book is exactly the thing someone else is looking for. And generally I thought I would leave it at that, but then I had another thought and I started scripting this video. And I got about halfway through, kind of lost my focus on it, and that's when a couple weeks ago I saw Don't Fret, Read Books had actually decided to make a video on this topic as well. And they're very articulate. They go over some of the larger points that I'm going to be echoing a little bit here in this video, and you should probably go watch theirs first because how they articulated the process of writing a book and what an author or writer should feel about feedback, both when they're creating and even if you decide to read reviews later on, or maybe why you shouldn't read reviews later on, was all value added, great work. And he said it in such like an empathetic way that kind of covered all of the bases. But listening to him talk inspired me to come back to this video script and also help me hammer out some of the end things I really wanted to say and get across. First thing I want to do is highlight that the woman who originally did this TikTok has privated her accounts or deleted them. Probably shouldn't be going after her specifically, which is why I've linked both Jess Owens and Don't Fret Read Books videos where you can see the original TikTok, and I'm not going to add her TikTok into this mess either, because if you haven't seen it yet or not isn't really important. You just need to know the main takeaway points that we're going to talk about in this video. She says writing is hard, so you should acknowledge that hard work by at least giving 3 stars. Yeah, writing is hard. As someone who does write short stories and novels and has a self-published book out, it was a lot of work to write a beginning, middle, and end, to get people to read it and give me feedback, to incorporate that feedback, to find a copy editor, to format everything, to commission a cover artist, to get everything right so I could put it on Amazon for publication. And if you're traditionally published, there's still a lot of those steps, the bulk of them I'd say, that are hard to do. Very few people can say that they've written a book, and even less people can say that they've published it, whether traditionally or self-published. And writing and creating as a whole is not generally respected for the hard work it is. One of the things that we can see thanks to H-Bomber's plagiarism video and this like resurgence concern of plagiarism in general is that it seems like a lot of people are plagiarizing or not appropriately crediting work, and part of the reason they're doing that is because of the churn and burn of YouTube, and some of it is because it is just legitimately hard to do. And I feel like those two things intersect in such a way, encourage people to plagiarize or to copy other people's work, which of course adds to the influx of creations that exist in the world and make it even less likely the original person's work will ever be seen or recognized. And all of these things kind of compound on each other and create like this deep frustration, resentment, upset within artist or writer or content creator that kind of make them feel like they would like all of that work to be recognized. They would like somebody in the world to see and appreciate what they're doing, or even if they don't appreciate, to minimally say, yeah, I can tell that you really cared about this thing. And on top of that, in this TikTok, she's talking about how she's 120,000 words into a book she's still writing, which as a writer to me says a couple things. First of all, this is the vomit draft, the very first rough take at this. So she's still literally in the process of creating this story. Second of all, 120,000 words is a lot of words. I'm assuming she's writing some kind of speculative story with like fantasy or science fiction, because that would put this in the right length for those genres. It means that she's creating a lot of that stuff and discovering a lot of these elements on her own right now. So I just feel like she is very connected and tuned into her work and very sensitive to criticism. And that's something that as a writer I struggle with all the time. Like, when is the right time for me to start releasing my work to beta readers? When will I be ready to receive that feedback? Or when will it be too close to me? And of course, she's like skipped a couple steps, because while she's still holding on to this thing, it's not perfected or ready to go. She's imagining people one-starring it after reading it. So like, she is just not emotionally divorced enough to publish that book. And the book isn't ready for publication. She's still writing it, yada, yada, yada. Probably is not even ready for beta reader feedback if this is where she is with it right now, because I have let things sit and then handed them out to beta readers, and they've given me something like, oh, I noticed these grammar errors, and I've got like really in my feels about that, because I have grammar checked it before I sent it to them, and they still notice things, even though I know as a technical writer that there will always be something for someone else to find that you missed. It's just like this natural reaction when you've spent all this time and effort and thought about something so long, to feel some kind of way when someone critiques it. And I just feel like she is so in her feels about it and has forgotten all the steps between her and publication, and how she shouldn't even be looking at reviews, and how reviews aren't really for her, they're for readers. And she's just articulating this need for validation out in the world in a way that doesn't add to the bookish conversation, and that kind of like blew up because most people read, they don't write. But here's another thing to think about when we talk about star ratings. Steve Shives released a video called "Star Ratings Are Useless and It's Capitalism's Fault." And in it, he explores how hospitality, retail, gig economy request for star ratings on your experience. And these employees often rely on good star ratings to continue to get gigs or to maintain their job. Like, consistently low star ratings will get you disciplined or possibly fired. And specifically, most of these corporations are looking for 5 stars. If you're not giving 5, you might as well be giving 0 to them. And often a poor experience that you might have with a gig economy or hospitality or retail worker has very little to do with the front-facing worker who's going to be disciplined. Like, if you order through Grubhub and they forget something, is it them that forgot? Is it the kitchen that forgot? Or like, if you're at a restaurant and you're waiting a really long time for your food, it's not really the server's fault that the kitchen is backed up. Or even if you're talking about like a cashier or a retail worker, if they don't have the item you're looking for, or if your coupon doesn't apply, or whatever the deal is, even though they're the one telling you that information, you give them the low score for it. It's not their fault. There's nothing they could have done, but they, again, are the ones who are taking the brunt, both by you being verbally angry with them potentially, but also from this review you've left. So because it's very rarely this employee's fault, and because 5 stars is the only good rating, and really a star rating is supposed to be your opinion, it's not supposed to be like an objective fact, and you would be punishing someone based off of an opinion, the only ethical thing to do, Shive says, is give the 5 stars, because that person's life is probably already pretty difficult if they're working one of those jobs, and you don't necessarily need to add to it, especially for something out of their control. But this can be really hard to like wrap your mind around and deal with the different ways that 5-star ratings are used. A 5-star rating is supposed to be a subjective opinion, and it's just supposed to be telling other people who might buy the thing or use the service how other people's experience was, so they kind of like know what to expect and know if this thing will be for them or not. But the star rating system has been co-opted, instead of being for other consumers, to be internal information for the company, for the business to act on. And in this way, companies are making you do free labor and also punishing other people for your opinion. And this is really blurring the lines with what a star review is and who it's for. And kind of like circling back to the authors complaining about star ratings, this is where I have a certain level of empathy for them as well, because I wonder if they're looking at star ratings and thinking about them the same way you think about the star rating for the service employee. There are some some similarities between being a writer and being a hospitality worker. Both these groups are often struggling financially. If you're working as a cashier, unless you're a teen or someone doing it part-time just to be busy, chances are good you're working more than one job and you're kind of running around to make it work. And if you're a writer full-time, you're also probably churning and burning and marketing and pushing really hard to be afloat. And you're working really hard in a way that our society doesn't really respect, acknowledge, or appreciate. And you both are relying on reviews and word of mouth to continue getting positive work. Also, you might both be receiving bad feedback on things you have limited ability to correct or fix. And you can get negative reviews with no elaboration at all, so you don't even know what you did wrong or what you could do to improve in the future. But I would say that authors are not the front-facing employee who's making minimum wage. They're more akin to the business owner or the head executive on the board. And I would say respectfully that what these authors need is more beta readers and feedback before publishing, as after the thing has been published is not the time to hear correction or what to do next. We should stop letting people co-opt reviews. The state of reviews for businesses and services is a little bit of a dystopian hellscape right now. And every time it feels like there's less and less distinction between what is like a review for people who want to use the service or who would like to buy the product versus a review as feedback for the employees that they might be punished off. And you know, going into this, I was willing to entertain that a certain level of negative reviews could bomb a book and make it less likely to appear in searches or less likely to sell, or even like less likely that that author could get another traditional publishing deal in the future. But I really don't think that's the case. For starters, commercial success for a writer is super rare and probably not something that is in the cards for most authors. And if you look at critiques in books historically, authors and critics don't agree, and that doesn't necessarily stop their book from getting well read, making money, doing all of the important stuff. And while how we buy books has changed, I did find this website that I'll be linking below that states that having a lot of reviews on books is important, but the actual star rating doesn't matter. It's the sheer volume of reviews that suggests that there'll be more and continued sales of that book in the future. So whether the star rating or not matters to the reader, it doesn't matter to the larger retail or online space. And you know, the truth at the end of the day is, while I would like to acknowledge the hard work and the passion put into any creative endeavor, and I would say that pretty much every book, movie, TV show, assuming it's not AI generated, had at least one passionate person behind the scenes who worked their butt off to make this thing happen, but probably a whole group of them. Unfortunately, you can work really hard and care a lot about something and still deliver a final product that's not any good. Other consumers get to know if that thing is not good. You don't get a pass just because you worked hard. And you wouldn't ask us to do that for something like a chair or a water bottle where the functionality element is obvious. So why do we do that with an entertainment thing where we have like a limited budget and want to spend that money wisely? Not to mention there's the whole side truth that like a bad review is sometimes exactly why someone picks up your book. So looking at this as a whole conversation, I feel like maybe we can have more empathy from where writers and creative people are coming from when they talk about how book ratings have hurt their feelings, while not changing what we do as reviewers. Because the truth of the matter is, authors shouldn't be looking at their reviews, and reviews should stay for consumers, and that's something that authors should want too. And I kind of hope this is the last video I ever make about how reviewers review books. I know this is a conversation that's going to go on forever, but at this point in time, I feel like this is the most rounded and kindest way I can say, authors, stick to your beta groups and your private DM chats to vent. Do not go online and talk about reviews or reviewers. But what do you guys think? Is it a lot of work to make a book? Is it something that we should commend whether or not the final product is worth reading? Let me know in those comments down below. And if you got this far, give me a pen or a pencil emoji. And as always, keep reading. Bye!